So welcome back to this next video where we're going to analyze and we're going to learn a little bit about other methods for collecting qualitative research, qualitative data. So we're going to start with the critical incident technique. And in here is when you want to study a specific activity or event that happened, that is very important for you. So then you will have to build a kind of background for you when you are doing your interview or when you are asking the person to elaborate on that. So here, most of the time you use this in an interview. So this is kind of like an interview, this method, but it can also be sent, for example, it's kind of not that common, but you can send the questions before and you will ask the person to fill in an email or something like that, where that person tells you the story of exactly what happened. Like in here, you have an example, like you have, I think this is kind of the script for doing an interview face-to-face, but you can send it by email, something like that, and then you ask the person to elaborate on this. That's why I said it's not very popular. It is more like kind of an interview where you go and ask someone about specific situation and you want to elaborate very deep in that situation. This is when this is useful. So it can be, for example, in forensic auditing, I think it is very useful because you ask about specific thing, how things happen, and then you dig deeper in there. But I think there are other uses also, like I think legal research is also important and psychology is also important, but in the end is when your unit of analysis is a specific event or a specific activity that you want to unpack. I think interviews in general are about anything, but the critical incident technique is very focused on something that happened or something that can happen. Then you have focus group. Focus group is also an interesting technique to collect data. Is very used in marketing, for example, because you have a group of people that are relevant for you. Like, for example, if you are orienting it to marketing, you will have people who are relevant for the product that you're selling. So you have kind of your target customers or something like that. So you have a group of people and then you elaborate like kind of a whole agenda of activities that you want to, that you do in order to collect information from them. Like, for example, you can show them something, show them a product, show them a video, show them something, and then ask them what are they feeling. And the important thing with the focus group is also the interaction between the people. Like you can ask in general and people will reply, and then you can ask someone specific. It's a very nice way to do it. And here you also have kind of the script for a focus group, so you can also follow these instructions if you want to do that. It is great, but sometimes it's difficult to find so many people to do the focus group, because I think normally focus groups are around like 3 to 10 people, more or less. So sometimes it's difficult to find that everyone can go at the same place or be at the same time. So that's why interviews are more popular. And also sometimes people don't want to talk in public, or it's a challenge, but it's also a very interesting way to collect data. Then you have protocol analysis. And in protocol analysis, you want, or you focus on kind of unpack a mental process of a particular situation. So it is kind of, it's a bit similar to the critical incident technique, but this is more structured. It's like you want to kind of build kind of conceptual map behind the process. So you dig deep in that process, but in a very structured way. I think the critical incident technique is not that structured as the protocol analysis, but in the end, both are very similar. You focus a lot on how can you unpack a specific process or a specific activity in both of them, protocol and critical incident technique. And then we move to the diary. A diary is also an interesting data collection method where you focus on collecting data, but not in one specific point in time. You focus on collecting data over time. So it's also a challenge, like especially in your thesis, you don't have a lot of time to actually do a diary or to get a diary to collect the information from. So sometimes it's not the best for a thesis, but still a very interesting way to collect data. And there are different types of diaries. For example, a log, which is also very structured and it focuses on time. Like maybe you can have access to a log, or you can design a log that people will feel like, for example, what you can maybe do this if you are focusing, for example, in activities, micromanagement, things like that, that people feel what they are doing every day for 1 week or something like that. And then you will end up having a log diary of what people do every day. You can also have a general diary, which is actually like a diary where people feel, or even you can feel like what are you experiencing every day as a researcher, or your people who you are studying, they also write their diaries. So this is also another way to do it. Like I was reading a paper about some students who went to a trip and they all wrote diaries about that trip. And those diaries were used as the data collection method to write the paper about some pedagogical things. So that can be a possibility. And so that's the diary of the person that you're studying, but also you as a researcher can write a diary. And then later you also have the diary interview, which is kind of interviewing someone based on the information from the diary. So it's like a combination of the diary with the interview. So as you can see, and here is something very important, combining the methods can improve the validity of your research. So this is a good example. Then we also have observation. And I think this is also a classic way of achieving data. Now with the pandemic, it became a challenge, but usually you were able to visit the company that you were studying or the organization that you were studying, and there you could do some observations, because then you could unpack a lot of things that you couldn't grab from the interviews by just visiting the place. So for example, if they say that meetings were very important in their interviews, maybe you can check that in the interview, when you do a visit, for example, with observation, and then you can see if in the meetings everyone is in there and everyone is really quiet, or is it not like that? Like maybe it's not really that the case, like only a few people attend the meeting. So maybe you can, from the interview, you know that interviews are important, but then when you do the observations, you realize that they're important only for a few people. So that is great. Now you have information saying that it's important, but important only for a few people. But you know that because you combined two methods of collecting data, and that's exactly what I wanted to tell you from all of this. That's the conclusion. But before conclusion, let me tell you the two types of observations, because we have non-participant observation, which is, I think, almost impossible, because they say like non-participant observation is like if you're a ghost, but we can't never be a ghost. Like if I have a student here next to me, or if I have another teacher next to me while I am recording the videos, I will definitely act differently to what I am doing now. I will be more nervous or something. So the presence of someone is affecting the way I am acting. So it is almost impossible to be a ghost. So it's not, non-participant doesn't mean that you are not a ghost or that you are not affecting the observance. But non-participant refers to that you are not part of the meeting, or that you are not part of the activities or whatever they're doing, that you are just visiting. That's non-participant, right? So don't get confused. Don't feel like non-participant is when you are a ghost or something like that. Of course, you affect what is going on, but the difference is that in non-participant, you are not part of the meeting officially or wherever, or you don't talk, for example. And when you are a participant, you are actually interact with the people. Like if you are a participant in a meeting, it's because then they ask you something, or you can say something. That's observation, participant observation. If you don't say anything, it's non-participant observation, but be careful. It's not because you're a ghost and that because you are non-participant, they behave as usual. That's kind of a limitation from the method. But anyway, those are the two types of observations. So in conclusion, qualitative research methods intend to exploit the context, and that's the key objective of qualitative. So in all of these methods, be sure that you pick up the context, that you try to pick up qualitative things that you try to pick up interpretations and these kind of things. There are several methods, so it's important to choose wisely. And also it is possible to combine methods to improve the validity of your data. So that's kind of takeaway point. Like, it's not like you have to choose one, it's that you can mix a few of them to improve the validity. Because as I say with that example, if you do 20 interviews and then the story says that meetings are important, and then you, in the observation phase, when you go and you see that maybe only half of the people care about meetings, maybe that's when you can say like, oh, this is interesting. So interviews are relevant for only a few of them. Why? Is it because they are the ones who take decisions, or is it because they are more structured? Is it their culture? What's going on in there? Maybe you have two different cultures. A lot of interesting things happen when you start kind of overlapping different methods of getting data. So now in the next video, we're going to talk about how to analyze qualitative data.